while those places would be nice, the answers to my questions aren't in Sydney and Brisbane. The answers to my questions are somewhere down the list. The answer to my question of how different can humans be, how are we the same even when we're so different? The answers to those questions are somewhere down the list. So I decided to just pick one, and I ended up flying into the center of the island, and then I just kept on going, and I just kept getting smaller and smaller planes until I ended up in places where there's no electricity, no running water. I eventually flew into this airstrip. It's this grass airstrip where there's no electricity, no running water, no 3G access. This is really pretty isolated. And your money's no good. There's no hotel. There's no stores to go to. And so I land, and this is my greeting. And then the plane leaves, and the plane leaves, and it comes back about every 6 weeks if the weather's good. And so then I'm back here again. And I decide I'm just gonna keep walking, and I just decide to walk and walk. And I just go for 2 more days. I walk, and I go past villages like this and villages like this, and I end up staying in one of these villages. This is a castaway. I guess you're not supposed to be this close to them, but I was a naive Nebraskan, so what do I know? So I ended up in this village here, and actually stayed in this house second from the right. This is the first place I stayed. I ended up staying here for off and on for 8 years. So this was like my life for quite some time. In fact, it was my entire social life. Because when I wasn't there, I was buried in books in a library in Virginia. So this was really my social life for 8 years. And I'll just give you a quick tour. They grow all their own food: taro, sweet potato, bananas. They raise pigs. They harvest spiders from the forest canopy. Snakes are a good deal. Basically, a snake, after it eats, it gets lazy and it just lays around, and then you can kill it, and you not only get the snake, but you get the appetizer as well. This was one of the good meals. So this meal we actually had about a week after I first arrived, and I was looking around the hut that night, and I'm thinking, gosh, there's holes everywhere here, and my snake karma's not good since I just ate the snake, and that snake could have family, they might be coming to get me, so I'm really worried. And so I wrapped myself in my sleeping bag. You see my sleeping bag there, the little red thing there, and I wrapped myself up in it. But it's the tropics, so it gets really hot at night. And the sleeping bag came off me in the middle of the night, and I woke up and I could feel this thing just laying across my chest like this big around. And I managed to grab it, and I threw it off of me. But as I threw it, I rolled with it. And I managed to pin it down with my left hand. And then I tried to move my right arm so I could pin it down with my right hand as well, but I couldn't move my right arm. So I don't know how I'm wrapped up in this thing. It's about that time I realized I actually pinned down my own right arm like this. My arm had just fallen asleep. So there was no snake. So then I have to explain why I'm resting myself on the ground and all this kind of stuff. And I barely, it's not that I barely speak the language, it's that I don't speak the language. It was just impossible. So really, all I can understand at this point is people saying blah, 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 and then they had a word for me, which was white man. So I hear like, blah, 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 white man, and then laughter. This is all I understood. And this sounds really funny, and I can tell you story after story. It's really funny. But for 3 months or so, this was by far the darkest moments of my life. And I realize now why it was. It was because when I arrived, I thought that who I was something inside me that I project outward. And when I got there, I started to realize that who we are is actually reflected back to us by the people around us, people who understand us, people who just simply understand what we're doing, what we're saying, the symbols that we're using, and the symbols that we're putting off. And so I basically lost myself there because nobody understood me, nobody knew who I was or what I was doing or anything. So I lost my sense of self, and I had to sort of rebuild that. And that actually, while painful, became a beautiful thing and a very eye-opening thing. Because what I realized was by breaking down my entire self, I was able to understand their world much more easily and more and more quickly than if I had kept myself intact. And I would never recommend that you tell your students you need to break down your entire self and rebuild. But it's certainly true, and research backs this up, that major perspective changes, major breakthroughs, major innovations, major moments of creativity require that you break down a little piece of yourself to take on a new perspective. Every paradigm shift requires it. Even sitting down at the piano and improvising requires that you silence certain parts of you that are telling you a certain way to do things. So every act of creativity, innovation, requires a little bit of giving up a little bit of yourself. And that takes courage, that takes vulnerability.